Eli Turner, a black homeless veteran, stands still. Worn jacket. Eli sits alone. Sharp gaze, 1 cup of coffee. Families behind him stare in silence. His skin is black. His jacket is worn. No other reason needed. The waitress calls the cops. 2 officers stared inside. Not a threat, just black skin. For them, that was enough. 2 white cops drag Eli out. No resistance, his blackness was the crime. Eli's tag drops, crushed, just metal to them, a warning to the Pentagon. Rachel picked up the tag, ELI, not a vagrant. They dragged the wrong man. They dragged Eli Turner, and in seconds, the Pentagon moved, not to save him, but to protect itself. Before we continue, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe. Tomorrow's episode will be even more intense. Chapter 1. Cold coffee, cold stairs. The bell above the diner door jingled faintly as Eli Turner stepped in. A gust of cold wind followed him, along with silence. Booths were filled with mourning families, couples scrolling their phones, retirees on their 3rd refill. Conversations paused, forks froze mid-air, all because he walked in. He didn't flinch. Worn boots hit the tiled floor 1 slow step at a time. His coat, military in shape but dulled by time, clung to his wiry frame. Frayed edges, faint stains, a combat patch barely visible under dirt and snow. His hair was cropped short, his face gaunt but alert, not weak, just weathered. Eli didn't ask for a menu. He didn't smile at the waitress. He didn't try to make himself smaller, more palatable. He simply found the quietest corner booth, lowered himself into it like it was a ritual, and ordered one thing. Black. No sugar. The waitress hesitated. Her eyes flicked to the kitchen, then back to him. She scribbled, nodded tight, and walked off. A child 2 booths over stared at him before her mother gently turned her head away. Behind him, an older couple whispered. He heard them anyway. Smells like the street. Wonder if he's armed. Eli didn't respond. His fingers wrapped around the coffee mug when it arrived. Steam rose. He didn't drink right away, just stared at the surface, quiet, unblinking. In his silence, he measured the room like a man who's done it 100 times before. 2 exits, 1 bathroom window, 16 people inside. No weapons visible, but fear? That was everywhere. He could feel it like a static charge in the air. It wasn't just coffee he was drinking, it was tolerance. It was how long before someone decided his presence was too heavy for the room. 10 minutes passed. That was as much as the town could take. The bell above the door jingled again. This time, the air didn't follow. 2 police officers stepped in, white, early 30s, both fresh-shaved with jackets still zipped. Their boots were clean. They scanned the room, then saw him. They didn't ask around. They didn't question anyone. Their eyes met the waitress's for a second. Enough. She gave the tiniest nod. And just like that, Eli Turner became a suspect. The taller cop approached. "Sir, we've had a call. I'm going to need you to step outside with us." Eli looked up, calm. "What was the call?" The other officer tightened his stance. "Suspicious individual. Unsettling patrons. We're not here to argue, sir." Eli exhaled slowly. Not in defeat, in calculation. He could have spoken 100 truths. That he was a decorated war veteran, that he had 3 Purple Hearts, that his name sat on classified rosters buried deep in D.C. But none of that mattered here. Not in this town, not with this skin. He stood. The diner held its breath. As he walked toward them, one hand in his pocket fumbled with something. A small metal tag, worn and bent. It had traveled more than most men ever would. It had crossed borders, jungles, deserts. He pressed it once in his palm like a prayer. The officers turned him around. Cuffs clicked. He didn't resist. The silence in the diner returned, but heavier now, like the guilt of those who watched and did nothing. As they walked him toward the door, a single sound cut through the hush. A small clink. Something metallic hit the floor. Nobody moved. The tag lay there, face up. Eli Turner, not a vagrant, not a stranger. A weapon once unleashed by the very country, now parading him out like a criminal. And in that moment, somewhere far away, deep inside the halls of the Pentagon, a phone rang. Chapter 2. 2 officers, 1 decision. Outside, the snow had begun to fall harder. Flakes danced under flickering street lamps, softening the sounds of the town, but not the tension. Eli stood between the 2 officers, flanked like a prisoner of war, though he walked without chains in his soul. His breath formed slow clouds in the cold air. His hands were cuffed, but his posture remained straight, defiant but not aggressive. Officer Grayson, the taller of the 2, radioed in. "1 male detained, code 4. Bringing him in." The other, Officer Powell, leaned closer. "What's your name?" Eli didn't respond. Powell frowned. "Don't play games. You got ID?" No answer. They reached the cruiser. Grayson opened the back door and gave a not-so-gentle nudge. Eli turned his head slowly and stared at the reflection in the cruiser's window. 2 cops, 1 black man, snow falling like ash. He stepped in without a word. Inside the diner, Rachel was still frozen in place. She hadn't meant to intervene. She was just another face in the crowd, a passing traveler stopping for coffee before hitting the road again. But something about the way the man had sat, how he didn't flinch when they cuffed him, and the metallic tag on the ground, it all felt wrong. She stood slowly, walked to the table he'd left behind. The coffee was untouched, still steaming. Then her eyes dropped to the floor. The tag. She bent down and picked it up. Eli Turner. Stamped, faded, still warm. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. Something clicked in her brain, a memory from her time back in D.C. Years ago when she worked in military intel. The name, she'd seen it buried in redacted reports. Shadow missions, no known photo, only a codename once whispered by top brass, Ghostborn. She slipped the tag into her pocket. Back in the cruiser, the drive to the station was quiet. Powell adjusted the heat. "He's not even fighting. Usually they run, or curse. This one, just weird." Grayson kept his eyes on the road. "Probably high, or broken." Eli spoke softly. "Neither." They glanced back. "Then what are you?" His gaze met theirs in the rearview mirror. "A mirror." Powell scoffed. "What's that supposed to mean?" Eli didn't answer. At the station, booking was routine. Fingerprints, mugshots, no ID on file, no response to questions. Name? Silence. Address? Silence. They logged him as John Doe 73B, then placed him in holding, 1 empty concrete room, cold as the air outside. No blanket, no shoes, just steel and shame. But Eli didn't curl up. He sat in the far corner, back against the wall, eyes sharp, waiting. Because he knew this wasn't the end. It was the signal. Meanwhile, across the state, in a gray conference room deep inside a federal building, a secretary rushed into a meeting. She whispered something into a general's ear. His pen froze mid-signature. "What did you say?" The secretary repeated it. "They detained someone named Eli Turner." The room fell silent. A younger officer looked confused. "Who's that?" The general stood slowly. "Not who, what?" He stepped out without another word. Down the hall, doors opened automatically as he passed. He entered a secure communications chamber, placed a call, a private, encrypted line. It connected. They dragged Eli Turner. No response for a few seconds. Then, "Are you sure?" "We're verifying. Civilian precinct, small town." Then shut it down, quietly. "But, sir, it's been years." "Exactly, which means if he's back, someone's gonna bleed." Back at the diner, Rachel sat in her car, laptop open, hotspot running. The name, Eli Turner, was her search query. Most links led to nothing. Just one archived military article, now deleted, and a blurry mention in a long-forgotten whistleblower blog. Redacted, censored. But the deeper she went, the more it made sense. They hadn't just arrested a homeless veteran. They had awakened a ghost the government had buried alive. And someone, somewhere, was already scrambling to fix it. Chapter 3. Metal and Memory. The cell was cold, but Eli Turner didn't shiver. He sat with his back against the wall, knees up, elbows resting lazily. Time didn't move here. It waited. Just like he did. No one had asked real questions yet. No lawyers, no officials, no brass, only routine cops doing routine things. But Eli knew what came next. Not because he feared it, because he remembered it. Every time a system doesn't know what you are, it tests what you could be. And Eli had been tested long before. Across town, Rachel parked outside a gas station, Wi-Fi running, her eyes locked to her laptop screen. The tag sat beside her keyboard. Simple, dented yet strangely heavy. Eli Turner. She wasn't sure why she was this deep already. She hadn't meant to get involved. But her gut told her this wasn't about a loitering man or a diner misunderstanding. Number this was a thread. And when you pull it, you better be ready for what unravels. She cross-referenced military records. Nothing. No service log, no discharge, no retirement file. She tried private defense rosters, then dark archives, and then, buried in an internal CIA leak, hosted on a mirrored server she once used as an analyst, she found it. Project Ghostborn. Operative ID ET-0411. Status, MIA file level, Omega Black termination. Date, none. Her pulse quickened. Termination date, none. They hadn't just lost Eli Turner. They never ended him. Back in the precinct, Officer Powell walked into the booking room, tossing a file onto the desk. Still no ID. No response. He's just sitting there, like he's waiting for something. Officer Grayson looked over. What did forensics say? Powell shrugged. Nothing on him, except this. He held up a photo of the crushed tag. Name's Eli Turner. We ran it. Nothing in the civilian database. Nada. Grayson narrowed his eyes. Well, run it somewhere deeper. In the cell, Eli sat still, eyes closed. But memory didn't sleep. He remembered a war not listed in the history books, a jungle not found on maps, a mission so silent even the men who died on it weren't buried with honors, but with denials. It was the 5th extraction mission in Guatemala. Then came Kandahar. Then that village in Nigeria they were never in. Then the cleanup ops. Then the betrayal. He had walked away from it all. Correction. He'd been erased. They'd told him he was too valuable to retire, so they buried him with the lies they wrote in ink, then burned the pages. Only the dog tag remained. Until now. Rachel made one final call. An old contact, a man named Ramirez, former NSA analyst, now buried in private cybersecurity contracts. When he answered, he sounded tired. Rach, I need a favor, quiet, fast, and sensitive. That look in your voice again. She ignored him. What can you tell me about Project Ghostborn? Silence. Then a slow, careful reply. Who else knows you're asking? No one. You didn't hear this from me, but if the name Eli Turner's on your desk, close the laptop, burn the tag, forget it. I can't. Then run, because if that man's above ground again, it means someone up there just made a fatal mistake. Back at the station, a deputy stepped into the holding wing. Prisoner wants a phone call. Grayson frowned. Thought he wasn't talking. He's not, but he wrote a number. He handed over a folded paper. Grayson opened it. No name, just 10 digits and one strange line written under it. They'll answer. Trust me. They hesitated, then dialed. 4 rings. Then, state your code. Grayson blinked. What? This is a secure line. State your code or hang up. Grayson stammered. We're calling on behalf of an individual. Eli Turner silence. Then, click, disconnected. At that very moment, an underground vault deep beneath Arlington lit up. Red, then blue, then full alert. 6 terminals activated, one message on the screen, ET-0411, signal received. Rachel stared out at the snowy road, knuckles white on the steering wheel. She didn't know what scared her more, that the man in the cell might be dangerous, or that the government was more afraid of him than she was. Chapter 4. The name they feared. A storm was coming, not outside, but behind closed doors. Deep inside the Pentagon, in a sub-level without windows, a cluster of top-level security officials stood in silence around a red-lit terminal. One word blinked on the monitor. ET-0411, signal received. The youngest analyst among them finally spoke. We confirmed it? It's really him? A general, face pale and still, didn't look up. It's him. But sir, he was declared MIA. Ghostborn was terminated years ago. Ghostborn was buried, not terminated. Should we alert Homeland? The general turned sharply. Number we contain it. Quietly. He stared at the glowing letters on the screen. Eli Turner. A ghost from America's deepest sins, now very much alive. Back in the small town station, Eli hadn't moved, still seated, still quiet. The only sign of life was in his eyes, studying every detail of the room, every crack in the wall, every uneven blink from the flickering ceiling light. And then he smiled, not wide, just a curl at the edge of his lip, as if he'd heard something no one else could. Officer Grayson re-entered with a folder in hand, eyes more tense than earlier. Mind telling me who the hell you really are? Eli didn't speak. Grayson slapped the folder down. That number you gave us? Bounced back through 4 federal relays before being hard disconnected. One of my calls got me a call back from a Colonel Turner. So I'll ask again. Who are you? Eli leaned forward slightly. Calm. Cold. Someone you can't cage. Rachel drove fast, her heart pounding as she passed the city limits. She had no plan, just instinct, and instinct told her to run toward the danger. She pulled into a low-budget motel outside town and opened her laptop again. She rechecked everything. The leaked file, the clearance tags, the name. She was sure now. Eli Turner wasn't just a soldier. He was a classified asset from an off-books project that had no official existence. Ghostborn wasn't a nickname. It was a directive. The soldiers picked for it weren't just elite. They were erased from the system so they could be used without accountability. Eli had been their deadliest ghost, and someone had just cuffed him in a diner. Meanwhile, the Pentagon war room lit up with voices. What's his current location? Local precinct, small town, officers unaware. We need a retrieval team. Too risky, public eye. He was detained in daylight, people saw. The general stared at the table, then said quietly, Then we don't retrieve. We overwrite. A younger officer raised a brow. Sir, create the narrative. Mental breakdown, aggressive behavior, drug trace, plant it, bury him again. But what if he talks? The general paused. Then we make sure no one listens. That night, Officer Powell received a call he couldn't trace. A voice gave him an instruction. Transfer the prisoner to county lockup. Midnight. No paperwork. You'll be compensated. Who is this? The line clicked dead. Powell looked at Grayson. We're being told to move him. By who? Powell swallowed. Someone above our pay grade. They looked through the holding window. Eli was still there, silent, unbothered, like he was waiting for this exact moment. At the motel, Rachel received a message. Anonymous. No subject. Just a sentence. If you're reading this, you've been tagged. She froze. Seconds later, a knock on the motel door. 3 hard taps. She grabbed her bag, shut her laptop, and climbed out the back window. Her rental car was still warm. She didn't look back. Somewhere, someone didn't want her asking questions. But it was too late. She wasn't just asking anymore. She was in it. At the station, as Powell unlocked Eli's cell, something shifted. Eli stood up. No resistance. Just a long, quiet stare. "You know where we're taking you?" Powell asked. Eli nodded once. "Not where I'm going." Grayson frowned. "What does that mean?" Eli looked at him. Calm, cold, prophetic. "It means this ends when you realize I was never the prisoner." Then he stepped forward. In Washington, D.C., a different kind of door opened. An emergency meeting between defense officials, intelligence heads, and 2 men who hadn't spoken in public for 10 years. The topic? Containment Protocol, ET-0411. But this time, no one at the table believed it could be contained. They dragged Eli Turner, and in doing so, they didn't uncover a threat. They reawakened one. Chapter 5. Ghosts in Uniform. Years before Eli Turner sat in that cold cell, he was a name no one spoke above a whisper. Not because he was feared, because he was used, then erased. It started with a letter, hand-delivered to a barracks in Kandahar. At the time, Eli was already a decorated combat leader. 3 tours, 0 casualties under his direct command. His reputation wasn't loud, but it was lethal. Superiors called him steady. His squad called him the Edge. But the letter changed everything. It read, "You've been selected. Report to Hangar 17, midnight. No gear, no questions." That night, he walked into darkness. 3 men waited. Suits, not uniforms. No names, no insignia. They asked him just one question. "If your country asked you to disappear, would you?" Eli didn't answer with words. He signed the paper. The next 18 months vanished from every database. On paper, Eli Turner died in a helicopter crash over Pakistan. In reality, he was reborn into something else. Project Ghostborn. No flag, no dog tags, except for the untraceable metal they clipped onto him. He operated in places that didn't exist, under commands that came without signatures. Extraction, elimination, sabotage. Every mission was off the books, and every kill was deniable, sometimes even to himself. They trained him to be invisible. Then they trained him to forget. Until one night, the jungle was quiet. Too quiet. The operation in Sierra Leone had gone sideways. Intel was wrong. Enemy forces weren't scattered rebels. They were private military contractors with U.S. tags painted over. Eli's team was wiped. Command told him to leave them. He didn't. He carried each of them one by one through the jungle under sniper fire. When he reached extraction, no one was there. No chopper. No signal. Just silence. He waited 3 days. Then the message came through. "Do not return." And that was when Eli Turner knew. He wasn't just a ghost. He was disposable. Back in the present, the transfer car moved down the snow-covered road toward the county facility. Powell drove. Grayson sat beside him, tense. Eli sat in the back, uncuffed now, by command from above. The silence was thick. Grayson finally broke it. "What were you? CIA?" Eli looked at him in the mirror. "What I was doesn't matter." "Bullshit. You're not a drifter. You move like a predator." Eli didn't blink. "I'm what happens when patriotism meets profit." Powell glanced back. "You saying they built you?" Eli's voice was low. "They built ghosts so they could claim no responsibility. Then they left us to rot." Grayson leaned forward. "So what now? You want revenge?" Eli smirked faintly. "I don't want anything. But someone should be afraid of what happens when ghosts stop being silent." At that exact moment, in a surveillance van parked 2 miles behind them, 2 men in civilian black listened in, former intelligence agents, now freelance containment. One turned to the other. We intercept at the next checkpoint? Negative. Not yet. HQ said wait until the drop. You think it's really him? The other didn't answer. He just stared at the glowing name on the screen. E. Turner, priority threat. Meanwhile, Rachel sat inside a coffee shop in a neighboring city, headphones in, eyes red from lack of sleep. She had triangulated something using 3 separate VPNs. The frequency of activity in federal clearance systems had spiked in the last 8 hours, but not for foreign threats, for one single subject. She pulled up a satellite surveillance access tool she wasn't supposed to still have, tracked an SUV on the highway, cross-referenced the plates, then whispered, "They're moving him." She grabbed her bag. Rachel wasn't an activist. She was a former data specialist trained in psychological warfare. And if what she suspected was true, the government wasn't planning to try Eli Turner. They were planning to silence him. Back in the transport vehicle, Grayson received a radio call. "County lockup unavailable. Reroute to fallback holding. Coordinates transmitting." He frowned. "Since when does county shut down intake?" Powell checked the nav screen. "These coordinates go off-road." Grayson hesitated. "This smell bad to you?" Powell nodded. "All of it?" In the back, Eli spoke for the first time in 10 minutes. "They're not rerouting me." Grayson turned. "What?" Eli's voice was calm. "They're rerouting you, to witness something you won't forget." As the SUV veered off the highway toward an abandoned facility hidden in the forest, neither officer could shake the chill in the air, not from the cold, but from the man sitting quietly behind them. The ghost, they were told, was gone. Inside, files, dozens, photos, documents, maps, all bearing one name, Eli Turner. The man without the case spoke first. "You're not supposed to exist." Eli didn't answer. The man continued. "You weren't just a ghost. You were insurance. You were leverage. You were dangerous. And now you're in error." Eli took a step forward. "You want to fix that error?" Silence. Then, "We want to offer a deal." Eli laughed. Once, dry, tired. "You've had 10 years to deal. You walk away. We wipe the story. We erase the footage. We give you new papers, new city, clean slate. And if I say no, then this room becomes your grave." At that exact moment, outside the precinct, a woman stepped forward through the crowd. Older, firm voice, clean coat, gray hair in a tight bun. She raised a bullhorn. "My name is Staff Sergeant Brenda McCall. I served with Eli Turner in 2008. I saw him carry 5 men through hell and back. He is not a threat, he is a hero, and you will answer for what you've done to him." The crowd erupted. In D.C., the Pentagon's crisis room held tense silence as a projected map tracked the spread of coverage. "He's trending in 3 states now. Veterinary groups are organizing online. Civil rights lawyers are filing motions." The general at the head of the table spoke flatly. "Accelerate containment." "How, sir?" He stared at the screen, at the face of Eli Turner from a decade-old photo, young, strong, unreadable. "We made him disappear once. Do it again." But what they didn't understand was this. You can't disappear what the world's already watching. And now, the world was watching Eli Turner. Chapter 6. The City Reacts. The next morning, the town woke up to something it hadn't seen in years. Headlines. Not about sports scores or bake sales, not about church raffles or local snowstorms, but about a man dragged from a diner. A phone video had surfaced, shaky, low resolution, but unmistakable. 2 white officers, a black man in a worn coat. No struggle, no violence, just firm hands, tight cuffs, and quiet compliance. Then, the tag on the floor. Someone zoomed in. Eli Turner. The video went viral overnight. First on local Facebook pages, then TikTok. By sunrise, national reporters were making calls. Who is Eli Turner? Inside the police department, chaos brewed. Reporters stood outside with cameras rolling. Protesters began to gather, some holding signs, others simply watching. Grayson stood at the window, jaw tight. "This is getting out of control." Powell looked pale. "We followed protocol." "Yeah? Then why does it feel like we stepped on a landmine?" At that moment, the sheriff burst in. "Where is he?" Grayson hesitated. "We followed the transfer order, sent him to the fallback facility." The sheriff's eyes widened. "Fallback? What fallback?" Grayson blinked. "We got a call from county. They said intake was down." The sheriff's voice dropped to a growl. "County never shut down. You didn't send him to jail, boys. You sent him into the dark." 2 towns over, Rachel sat in a cafe corner with a borrowed charger, a coffee that had long gone cold, and 3 burner phones. Her laptop screen glowed with a new article. "Mysterious arrest raises questions about veteran mistreatment." She'd planted it. Not under her real name, not through a major outlet. But she knew how to start a fire, and this one was catching. She scrolled through the comments. He didn't even resist. Why'd they arrest a vet? That name sounds familiar? Tag said Turner. Is he one of those black ops guys? Rachel knew she had to move fast, because if this story reached the wrong ears before she reached Eli, he'd disappear again. Only this time, not in records, in reality. Meanwhile, deep in the abandoned holding facility, Eli sat on a concrete floor under flickering lights. No windows, no camera in sight, just silence and distant hums from generators. A door creaked open. 2 men entered, not cops, not military, civilians in dark clothing, too clean, too precise. One held a briefcase, the other held nothing. Eli stood. The man with the case set it down, unlocked it. Chapter 7. The File. They buried. Rachel stared at the screen in front of her. Sweat gathered behind her neck as she rerouted through a secure back door into a federal mirror server, one she'd only used once before, years ago, when she was still inside the machine. She typed slowly, carefully, ET-0411 classified archive. Nothing. She tried a different path, bypassing filters, slipping under the keyword locks, using an old cipher she remembered from a burned briefing. A flash of black appeared, then gray text, then finally, access. She leaned forward. Project Ghostborn status, inactive subject, Eli Turner, ET-0411, clearance level, Omega Black Operation Directives, Deep Extraction, Silent Elimination, Non-Civilian Engagement, Result, Unknown Asset Lost Termination. Protocol, pending. Beneath that, attached files, dozens of them. She clicked on the first. Grainy images loaded. Jungle terrain, blurred thermal scans, red targets marked with an X. One clip showed Eli dragging a wounded soldier across mud with a pistol in one hand, blood pouring from his side. The next file, an internal memo. Turner refuses to comply with silent retreat protocol. Suggest full termination. Dated. 1 week before his disappearance. Rachel's breath caught. They hadn't just lost him. They'd tried to kill him. Inside the holding facility, the man across from Eli pressed further. We know you didn't talk back then, but times have changed. People care now about justice, about accountability. If you speak, if you tell them what we made you do, there will be tribunals. There will be chaos. Eli tilted his head slightly. That's not my problem. It will be. For you. For everyone you ever trusted. The man stood. We buried you for a reason. Let's not pretend you were a hero. Eli stood too. I didn't need to be a hero. I just needed to survive you. There was something in his eyes now. Sharp. Old. Unbroken. The man stepped back slightly. I'll make one last offer. A life. Quiet. Far away. Full immunity. Eli didn't blink. You made your last offer 10 years ago. In the jungle. When you left me to die. Outside, 2 unmarked black SUVs pulled up near the facility gate. Rachel watched from behind a broken fence, heart pounding. She had tracked the transfer path using triangulated GPS records. No official prison listed here, no state record, just a black dot in a forest, which meant she was right. They weren't locking Eli up. They were erasing him again. She reached into her bag and powered on a drone, launched it. Its small camera zipped above the trees. What it saw chilled her. The building was surrounded. In the Pentagon, another report came in. Unconfirmed footage shows a drone circling the black site. From where? Civilian ID? Possibly journalist or activist? Trace it. Then the general gave one new order. Accelerate termination protocol. Inside the facility, Eli stared into the eyes of the man trying to end his legacy. You think this ends here? The man sneered. You're a relic, a leftover. No one's coming for you. Eli leaned forward. You dragged me once. I let you. You do it again. I take someone with me. He reached slowly into his coat pocket. Carefully, deliberately. The agents tensed, but he only pulled out the broken dog tag, held it out like a knife made of memory. The agent hesitated, because he understood something now. This wasn't just metal, it was a message, and the wrong people had started reading it. Rachel uploaded the footage. The drone's feed went live, broadcasted to 4 anonymous forums, 3 whistleblower sites, and 1 private server she used for insurance. She added a title, Eli Turner, the ghost they tried to kill twice. Then she hit send. Within minutes, the story spread again. Now with maps, coordinates, documents, mission names, and a face. Eli Turner, black, veteran, ghost, no longer lost, now found. Chapter 8. The Girl and the General. The general's office in Arlington was silent, but the pressure inside it could have cracked glass. Aide after aide delivered briefings, memos, and warnings. Every minute, new alerts popped up. Screens showed hashtags, satellite maps, leaked files, public fury. The general stood with his back to the room, staring out the window. Then, finally, he spoke. Get me General Alden McCall. Someone hesitated. Sir, he's retired. Not for this. 3 hours later, in a modest house on the edge of Virginia's quiet hills, a woman opened her front door and blinked at the sharply dressed officers standing on her porch. Rachel McCall. The same Rachel who uploaded the files. The same Rachel who now held the government's secrets in her hands. You're coming with us. Under what authority? They handed her a phone. A voice came through, calm and steady. Rachel, it's me. Grandpa, I need you to trust me. Get in the car. At a military base no one admitted existed, Rachel was escorted into a dimly lit debriefing room. There, standing in full-dress uniform, was her grandfather, General Alden McCall. She froze. He hadn't worn a uniform in over a decade, not since the Ghostborn program was shut down. He looked older now, grayer, but his eyes were still sharp. I told them not to touch him, he said. I told them what would happen. Rachel approached slowly. You knew Eli? I didn't just know him. I trained him. Flashback, 2009. A young Eli stood alone on a gun range. While other candidates struggled with drills, he moved like water, precise, calculated, deadly. McCall watched from behind glass. That one, he told the brass. If we build the program around anyone, it's him. But he's unpredictable, someone replied. Exactly. You don't make ghosts out of predictable men. Back in the room, Rachel paced. You knew they tried to kill him. I knew they'd use him up. That's what we do to black assets who scare white rooms. Rachel stared at her grandfather. Why didn't you stop it? I tried. They buried me before they buried him. She nodded slowly, breathing hard. And now? He handed her a folder. Inside, coordinates, escape routes, contact names, and a simple heading, Operation Retrieve. You're not alone in this, Rachel. He has allies. Quiet ones. Rachel clutched the folder. Why help now? General McCall looked her dead in the eyes. Because they dragged the wrong man, and you lit the match that's going to burn this whole thing down. Meanwhile, at the black site, things were falling apart. The agents in charge scrambled to shut down the perimeter. They'd seen the drone footage leak in real time. They knew the storm was coming. But one of them made a call anyway to D.C. We still have him. You want him gone? A pause, then a cold answer. Too late. Prepare for extraction. But if he resists, terminate. But Eli wasn't resisting. He sat calmly in the interrogation chair, arms crossed, eyes shut. Not asleep, just remembering. Yemen. The burn site. The mission they never admitted. He'd saved a child, disobeyed a kill order, left witnesses alive. That was the day command stopped trusting him. That was the day they started planning to remove him. Now Eli opened his eyes again and waited, because he knew someone was coming, not to kill him, but to bring him back. On the outskirts of the forest, Rachel rode in a military SUV, moving fast through back roads. Her driver said little, but she noticed the patch on his shoulder. Delta. Retired. They weren't sending a rescue. They were sending those who owed him everything. And as the convoy neared the facility, Rachel whispered to herself, "They thought they buried a ghost." She looked out the window. They forgot what happens when ghosts walk again. Chapter 9. They came for Rachel. The SUV screeched to a halt outside the black site perimeter. Rachel stepped out into the snow, flanked by two veterans in civilian gear, former special forces, faces hardened by wars most people never knew happened. The forest ahead was silent, too silent. "Eyes up," one of them murmured. "They know we're here." Rachel's pulse thudded in her ears. She clutched the folder General McCall had given her. Coordinates, blueprints, access points, all leading here. Somewhere inside that concrete shell, Eli was waiting. Alive. Maybe. Inside the black site, the atmosphere shifted. Eli raised his head, boots shuffled beyond the walls, voices whispered behind glass. He could smell the panic, like sweat on a dying man. They weren't soldiers, they were shadows pretending to be wolves. And wolves knew when a bigger predator was near. The agent who'd been interrogating him returned, face pale, hands shaking. "We're ending this." Eli tilted his head. "Number your ending." A siren blared. Then, gunfire. Short, controlled, not from guards, from outside. Rachel and her escort breached the gate. One of the veterans tossed a flash charge against the security wall. Sparks exploded. The lights inside the compound dimmed for 3 seconds. Long enough. They moved like ghosts. Not a sound wasted. Every step measured. Rachel followed, adrenaline mixing with fear and clarity. She wasn't a soldier, but she was her grandfather's blood. One of the vets kicked open the rear door. They moved in. In the central chamber, Eli stood now, calm. Still cuffed, but not helpless. The agent raised his sidearm. "Sit down." Eli didn't move. Another command. "I said..." But the door exploded inward. Smoke, shouts, light. Rachel entered first, coughing through the haze. And then their eyes met. She froze. So did Eli. Not because they knew each other, but because something unspoken passed between them. Recognition without memory. He knew she wasn't just another face, and she knew this was the man the country was afraid of. One of the agents lunged for Rachel. The Delta vet tackled him midair. A fist connected, then a crunch. Silence. Eli slowly raised his hands. "Keys." Rachel blinked, then reached the fallen agent, pulled the handcuff key, ran over. Click, click. The steel dropped. Eli rolled his wrists, as if feeling them for the first time in years. "You're Rachel," he said, voice low. She nodded. "How did you—" "You walk like McCall." "Smart. Too careful, but not scared enough." She smiled faintly. "He said you'd say something cryptic." "You believe in ghosts now?" She looked him in the eye. I just set one free. They moved fast through the corridors, Eli leading now. Every twist and haul was mapped in his memory. He didn't need the blueprints. He'd lived here once, as a weapon, as a prisoner, now as a reckoning. They reached the side exit. Just before the door opened, Eli stopped. He turned to Rachel. "What you did? Uploading that file?" "I had to. They needed to see." Eli nodded. "Then they'll come for you too." "I know." He studied her. "You ready for that?" "No," she said, breath steady. "But I'm not alone." They stepped into the night. Elsewhere, in a cold-lit room within the Pentagon, the general stared at a satellite image. 4 bodies lay outside the compound. A helicopter lifted off from the woods, gone, and with it, Eli Turner. A ghost they couldn't kill. A secret they couldn't bury. A story now far beyond their control. On the ride out, Rachel finally spoke. "Where do we go now?" Eli stared out the window, the trees passing like memories. "They dragged me once," he said. "Now, we drag them." Chapter 10. The trial begins. The courthouse was old, with peeling white columns and a faded U.S. flag that fluttered half-heartedly in the winter wind. But that morning, it felt like the center of the country. Cameras swarmed the steps. Reporters elbowed for angles. Protesters lined the sidewalk with signs. "Justice for Eli Turner. Veterans deserve better. We see you, Ghost-born." Inside, Eli sat in a dark suit, not a uniform, not a jumpsuit, just cloth that fit cleanly over old scars. Beside him, Rachel, her jaw set, eyes forward, no longer just a data analyst or a granddaughter. She was a witness now, a key. The judge's voice echoed through the chamber. Case 127A, United States versus Officers Grayson and Powell. Gasps murmured in the back row. The trial wasn't about Eli directly, but it was about what started everything. The diner, the arrest, the silence. The prosecutor rose. "Your Honor, this case is simple. 2 officers removed a man from a public space based on nothing but his appearance. No law broken, no threat made, no warning given. That man, Eli Turner, was not only innocent, he was a decorated veteran. And his detainment was not just illegal, it was deliberate profiling." The defense scoffed. "We had a call about a loiterer, a black man drinking coffee. The officers followed protocol?" "No," the prosecutor said firmly. "They followed bias." Rachel took the stand. She described the scene. The coffee, the silence, the tag, then the upload. "Why did you do it?" the prosecutor asked. Rachel glanced at Eli. "Because they weren't going to protect him," she said. "Because if I didn't speak, he'd vanish again. And because I couldn't let history bury a man like that." The defense tried to rattle her. "Are you even qualified to determine if someone's a threat?" "No," she said. "But I know one when I see one, and I saw fear, but not from Eli, from them." Eli never took the stand. His lawyer advised against it. But as the trial continued, his presence became louder than any testimony. He sat still, unflinching, with the same eyes that once scanned war zones now fixed on a courtroom built to forget men like him. The jury watched him closely, not just as a defendant's victim, but as a man who had survived the system twice. Outside, the public erupted. News anchors debated. Talk shows speculated. Veterans called in. Civil rights leaders marched. The Pentagon stayed quiet. But internally, panic spread. Because this wasn't just about 2 cops anymore. This was about the hidden architecture beneath them. The agencies, the deniability, the lies. On the 5th day, the jury delivered the verdict. Both officers, guilty of unlawful detainment and misconduct. Shock rippled through the courtroom. Some clapped, others cried, but Eli just nodded once, like a soldier marking a checkpoint. One battle done, not the war. After court, a reporter cornered Rachel. "Is this the end?" She shook her head. This was just chapter 1. The real story is what they tried to hide, and Eli isn't hiding anymore. Later that night, alone in his motel room, Eli opened a small box. Inside, his crushed dog tag. Rachel had had it restored. Under the dim light, he turned it over, fingers brushing the name. Eli Turner, not erased, not a number, a man. In the hallway, Rachel knocked. He opened the door. She handed him a flash drive. What's this? The rest of your file. Ghostborn, missions, orders, even the stuff they blacked out. Eli stared at it for a moment, then slipped it into his coat pocket. Rachel stepped back. You don't have to go public. You don't owe anyone anything. Eli looked past her at the dark sky. I don't owe. But I remember. Chapter 11. Hidden Orders. Deep in the heart of Washington, D.C., behind a layer of fake departments and buried budgets, a meeting was already underway. 5 men, 2 women, all in suits with no agency markings, no names on the door. Just silence, tension, and one file on the table. Subject: Eli Turner. A thin man with silver-rimmed glasses spoke first. This was supposed to stay dead. Another nodded. He was off the grid for a decade. We paid to bury this. The woman at the end of the table flipped the folder open. Until 2 beat cops dragged him out of a diner. Someone muttered, "Idiots." The man in the middle, the only one who didn't have a laptop, didn't have notes, just leaned forward and said, "So now we fix it." Another asked, "How?" "Not with bullets, with a story." The plan came in pieces. First, they'd release a report discrediting Eli. Mental instability, PTSD flare-ups, possibly linked to an old classified incident with collateral damage. Next, they'd plant a leak, claims he had turned on his own squad, that he left bodies behind in black ops theaters. Then they'd say the file Rachel released had been tampered with, edited, misleading. And finally, if he still didn't go quiet, they'd bury him the old way, not with death, with doubt. Rachel read the smear article the next morning. Former Ghostborn operative linked to rogue operations? She threw the tablet across the motel bed. They're already rewriting history. Eli was sitting by the window, sipping instant coffee like it was war rations. They always do, he said calmly. You're not even mad? He looked at her. I've lived in lies longer than I lived in truth. Rachel sat on the edge of the bed. They're saying you burned a village, that you executed civilians. Eli didn't blink. I was ordered to eliminate a weapons facility in Myanmar. I refused. Then they sent someone else in and made sure the wreckage was blamed on me. Rachel looked away. She knew now. Every medal he earned came with a cover story. Every scar came with a file marked classified. Later that day, an email pinged on Rachel's burner account. It was from someone she hadn't spoken to in years. Subject: I have proof. The body of the message was short. I know what they did. I saw the order. Meet me at 8 p.m. Come alone. Attached was a partial image. A document header, Operation Red Leash, authorization, terminate asset E. Turner. Rachel's blood went cold. That night, against Eli's warning, she drove to the meeting location, a public park in Arlington. Snow fell steadily. The lamps buzzed with faint yellow light. A man sat on a bench, hooded. He stood as she approached. You're Rachel McCall? She nodded. You have the rest of the file? He pulled out a hard drive, eyes scanning the shadows. I worked logistics on the Myanmar extraction. I was there when they changed the mission report. You weren't supposed to find him, and he wasn't supposed to live. Rachel took the drive. Then, headlights, from every side. 3 black SUVs screeched to a halt. Doors opened. Men in suits poured out, guns drawn. Rachel froze. But the hooded man shoved her aside. Run! Gunfire erupted. She ducked, sprinted behind the bench, clutching the drive like it was oxygen. Then, tires peeled in the distance. Rachel didn't look back. She just ran. Back at the motel, Eli was already pacing. She burst in, panting, bleeding slightly from her arm. He caught her before she collapsed. "They found me." He checked the drive in her hands, then her face. "They're moving fast," he muttered. Rachel nodded. "They know the court didn't stop you. They know the public didn't silence you." Eli placed the drive on the table, then stared at it for a long moment. "They wanted me erased." He looked up. "Now I'll give them a reason to remember." By morning, those clips were broadcast nationwide. The Pentagon's denial machine collapsed. One resignation followed another, and Eli Turner's legend transformed into something unstoppable. At a safe distance, Rachel handed Eli a burner phone. "You've done it. You could disappear again now. Live out your life." But Eli didn't take the phone. He looked to the horizon. "I'm not done. There are others like me, buried in files, erased from records. This system didn't just try to erase me. It's built to erase anyone inconvenient." Rachel asked quietly, "So what do we do?" Eli turned, eyes sharp. "We expose every shadow they built." Back in Washington, a senator stood before a stunned committee. "The actions of the Ghost-born division represent a betrayal of everything this nation claims to stand for. And yet, one man survived it. One man spoke." She looked directly into the camera. "His name is Eli Turner, and America owes him more than silence." Chapter 12. Eli Speaks. The room was small. Just a desk, a microphone, and a cheap camera mounted on a tripod. Eli Turner sat in front of it, staring directly into the lens. His hands were steady, but the silence before he spoke was thick, like the moment before a sniper pulls the trigger. Rachel stood off-screen, watching through the viewfinder. The flash drive she recovered sat beside Eli, plugged in. Inside it, orders, field logs, kill authorizations, and one undeniable document. Operation Red Leash. Terminate Asadi Turner. Eli took a breath, and then he spoke. "My name is Eli Turner. I served this country in places that don't exist. I was trained to eliminate threats before they reached your news feeds. I was deployed to jungles, deserts, war zones, with no name, no dog tags, no return date. I obeyed, I endured, I survived. Until I realized the greatest enemy I faced wasn't overseas. It was here." He placed his crushed dog tag on the table in front of him. "This is all I had left of who I was. They stripped the rest. When I refused to carry out an illegal strike, they erased me. They told my team I was dead. They burned my file. And when I resurfaced, they tried to bury me again. Not because I'm dangerous, but because I remember." The camera recorded for 15 straight minutes. Eli listed names, people now retired but who had signed off on covert assassinations. He described missions rewritten to blame him for civilian deaths. He exposed the system that creates ghosts like him, and then uses patriotism to keep the public quiet. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said at the end. "I'm asking for truth. I'm asking that we stop calling silence service." And then he said the line Rachel knew would shake the country. "You didn't drag me to protect the people. You dragged me because you're scared of what I might say." He leaned closer to the lens. "And now, I've said it." Within hours, the video was online, posted anonymously across whistleblower networks, encrypted forums, and mirrored news servers. But it didn't stay quiet. Journalists picked it up. Activists reposted it. Veterans began commenting. "I served under Eli Turner. He saved my life." "He refused to shoot children. They called that insubordination." "This man deserves a statue, not a cage." It spread like wildfire, and for the first time, the Pentagon couldn't contain the blaze. At the Department of Defense, emergency meetings convened. "What do we do?" He named names. "He has documents. Discredit him." "We already tried." One aide said it plainly. "We don't control the story anymore." Meanwhile, Rachel monitored everything from a remote cabin, the views, the uploads, the media response. Eli sat in silence beside her, watching the world finally see him. Not as a vagrant, not as a threat, but as a reckoning. Rachel turned to him. "You're everywhere now." He nodded. "So are they." She paused. "What happens next?" Eli stood slowly. "They built a war machine. Now it's eating itself." That night he stood outside, staring at the stars. Cold air in his lungs, snow at his feet. For the first time in years, there was no one telling him what to do. No handler, no mission, just the sound of wind and the weight of truth. He whispered to himself, "You tried to erase me." A pause. "But you forgot I was trained to survive." Chapter 13. A Nation Watches. Every network picked it up, at first cautiously, then with urgency. Former Black Ops veteran exposes shadow program. Whistleblower video sends shockwaves through military ranks. Who is Eli Turner? Anchors debated it. Panels dissected it. Online forums flooded with hashtags. Number Justice for Eli. Number Ghostborn Exposed number. They dragged him by noon. Eli Turner's face was on every screen in America. No longer a ghost. Now, a symbol. Rachel watched from the window of the safe house as reporters gathered at the forest edge. Drones hovered overhead. She turned back to Eli, who was calmly wiping down the scope on a pair of old field binoculars. "They're calling for hearings," she said. "I know. They want to subpoena everyone you named." "They should." She hesitated. "Some of them, they'll try to turn the public against you again." Eli looked at her. "I didn't speak to be loved." Inside the Pentagon, phones rang non-stop. Several former officials had gone underground. One had already fled the country. A retired general gave a statement on live TV. "I warned them. I told them Eli Turner wasn't the enemy. They made him one because they were scared of what he knew." Congress announced an emergency investigation. And yet, another directive circulated quietly. Subject ET-0411 is now a national security liability. Active capture authorization. No trial. No arrest warrant. Just a green light. At nightfall, Eli stood in the woods, watching headlights roll up the road. Not media, not civilians. Military-grade vehicles. He turned to Rachel. "They're not done." She gripped the radio. "We need to move." Eli shook his head. "Number. Let them come." Rachel blinked. "What?" "This isn't about hiding anymore. They need a clean ending, something they can spin. I'm not giving it to them." "Then what are we giving them?" Eli looked out into the trees, listening to the distant hum of engines. A mirror. 2 hours later, the team arrived. 6 men in full tactical gear, night vision, silenced weapons. No insignia, no names. Ghosts hunting a ghost. They surrounded the cabin, but inside they found nothing. No Rachel, no Eli. Just a USB drive left on the table with a handwritten note. "Too late." The contents of the drive, recordings of the men who sent them, audio clips of classified meetings, names, coordinates, code phrases, and one voice, clear as day, saying, "Terminate Turner before this reaches public." Chapter 14. Verdict and Uprising. The chamber was packed, not just with politicians, but with veterans in uniform, mothers with folded flags, journalists, whistleblowers, and survivors of programs no one used to admit existed. The Senate Oversight Committee had become the stage for something bigger than a hearing. It was a reckoning. Eli Turner sat silently near the back, not behind the table, not under oath, just present. His presence was louder than any testimony, because he wasn't the one being judged, the system was. The chairman cleared his throat. "Today we review the evidence surrounding Project Ghostborn and the attempted erasure of operative ET-0411. Murmurs filled the room. Documents flashed on screens. A video played, Eli's testimony. His words echoed again, but this time not from the shadows. This time under the dome of the very Capitol that once ignored him. You dragged me not because I was dangerous, the recording played, but because I remembered what you wanted buried. Witness after witness came forward. A former analyst, a field medic who survived a ghost-born operation, an officer who disobeyed the same illegal order Eli once refused. Their words painted a brutal picture: secret teams, black budgets, missions with no accountability, lives lost, truths destroyed, heroes discarded. When Rachel took the stand again, the room fell silent. She held up the crushed dog tag. They thought this was scrap metal, but it became evidence. And when I picked it up, I didn't just find Eli. I found what they were afraid of: proof. The verdict didn't come from a courtroom. It came from the people. Protests surged nationwide, not of anger alone, but of awakening. Veterans demanded policy reform. Civil rights groups pushed for military transparency. Journalists reopened old investigations. Dozens of former operatives came forward. Men and women like Eli, left behind, blacklisted, forgotten. The movement had a name now, number unerased. And at its center was one man who never asked to lead, but who refused to disappear. The government had a choice: cover this up and risk chaos, or admit it. They chose silence, which only made the fire spread faster. One morning, a statement was released. In light of recent disclosures, we acknowledge the existence of an unsanctioned program known as Project Ghostborn. We are launching a full investigation. No apology, no responsibility, just fear in official language. Eli read it and smirked. "It's not an admission," he said. "It's a crack." Rachel raised an eyebrow. A crack? In their mask. Later that day, Eli walked out onto the steps of the Capitol. Hundreds waited. No speech, no flag. Just him. Someone shouted, "You're a hero!" He shook his head. "I'm a warning." He raised the dog tag above his head. "This isn't about me. It's about every name they thought we'd never say, every file they thought we'd never find, every lie they thought we'd swallow." His voice cut through the cold air. "No more ghosts." The crowd erupted, not in noise, but in purpose. Somewhere in the sea of faces, Rachel whispered, "We did it." Eli shook his head gently. "No," he said. "They did." That night, across the country, buildings lit up in blue, not for mourning, but for remembrance, for those who were erased, for those who refused to stay gone. Only one chapter remained, the final page of a story that never should have needed telling, and it would begin with the same words: "They dragged Eli Turner." Chapter 15, Not Justice, Warning, 1 year later. The snow fell gently over Arlington Cemetery. Rows of white headstones stretched in quiet symmetry, but one marker stood apart, not because of what was written, but because of who wasn't buried there. No body, no funeral, just a plaque. Eli Turner, ghost-born operator, survivor, witness. They dragged him. He dragged the truth. A crowd gathered in silence. Veterans, whistleblowers, young activists. Even a few members of Congress who once denied knowing his name. At the front, Rachel stood with a folded jacket in her arms, Eli's original field coat, mended, the tag restored and sewn inside. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just placed it on the marker and stepped back. The world had changed, but slowly, painfully. Project Ghostborn had been officially disbanded, dozens of files declassified, reparations offered to surviving operatives and their families. Legislation passed requiring oversight of black budget operations. But no one ever found Eli. No trail, no camera footage, no confirmed sightings, and that's exactly how he wanted it. Because Eli Turner hadn't vanished. He had chosen to leave. Some say he lives off the grid in Alaska. Others claim he's helping extract victims of covert programs overseas. A few believe he was finally hunted down. But Rachel knew better, because every few months an envelope arrived at her door. No return address, no note, just a new dog tag, not Eli's, someone else's, someone the world forgot. someone who wasn't erased anymore. One morning, Rachel opened a package. Inside, a single flash drive and a folded piece of paper. She plugged it in. A video played. Eli sat under a tree somewhere high in the mountains. Snow on his shoulders, beard thicker, eyes the same. He looked into the camera. "If you're seeing this, it means I'm done running. Not because they stopped chasing, but because it's your turn to lead. I'm not justice. I'm a warning. Don't wait to be dragged. Stand, speak, survive. Then drag the truth into the light, no matter how much they try to bury it." He paused, then smiled faintly. "And when they ask where I went," he looked to the camera one last time, "tell them, ghosts don't die. They just move in silence." The screen went dark. Rachel closed her eyes, and somewhere beyond the reach of governments, beyond silence and scandal, a man walked through the snow, not lost, not hunted, not forgotten, free. End. They dragged Eli Turner,